Out there, on a stretch of road where the asphalt disappears into wilderness, a new kind of machine is rewriting what adventure feels like. It hums instead of growls, moves with instant precision instead of lagging roar, and leaves behind nothing but tire tracks and quiet. This isn't the future imagined in sketches, it's the one rolling across America's backroads right now. Built to conquer mud, snow, and silence alike, it challenges a century of assumptions about what strength and endurance sound like. It's the moment when technology meets terrain, and every mile tells us something new about how far electric engineering can go when it's designed for the untamed. The next 25 minutes are a deep dive into how an electric truck became the loudest story in the automotive world, without making a sound. Like and subscribe if you love seeing where innovation meets grit, and drop a comment with which vehicle you want to explore next. The Rivian R1T begins not in a boardroom or a factory, but in an idea, one that asked a daring question. Could an electric vehicle be more than a commuter's gadget? Could it be a truck, a real one, built for hauling, camping, and climbing the kind of landscapes that usually belong to gasoline and grit? In the early 2010s, when Rivian was still a quiet startup, most people associated electric power with small city cars and sleek sedans. The concept of an electric pickup seemed laughable, even impossible. Yet that skepticism became the R1T's fuel. Its story starts in Illinois and Michigan, where a team of engineers decided to chase an improbable dream, to merge utility and sustainability in a way that didn't feel compromised. The Rivian R1T's first sketches showed a truck that didn't mimic legacy pickups. Its proportions were aerodynamic but muscular, its front end distinctive and almost serene compared to the snarling grills that define traditional trucks. Every design cue had purpose. Flat underbody panels for airflow, sealed lighting elements for water crossings, storage that worked smarter rather than bigger. The famous gear tunnel, a slim compartment between cabin and bed, was a revelation. Functional, elegant, and unlike anything before it. This wasn't just styling, it was problem-solving in metal and software. To understand why the Rivian R1T matters, you have to see it as a statement against inertia. Pickup trucks have long been symbols of American work and freedom, but they also became icons of excess, oversized, overpowered, under-efficient. Rivian's designers knew they couldn't win by out-muscling the giants. They had to redefine what strength meant, so they built the R1T around an electric skateboard chassis, battery, motors, and suspension, all integrated into a flat, modular platform. That allowed for perfect weight balance, instant torque delivery, and a cabin unburdened by an engine bay. The payoff was control and confidence on terrain where traditional trucks lurch and struggle. In engineering the Rivian R1T, Rivian didn't just want numbers on paper. They wanted sensations, the quiet pull of acceleration on a mountain pass, the eerie calm of gliding through a forest trail with nothing but birds for soundtrack. Even its regenerative braking was tuned to feel intuitive off-road, one-pedal driving that mimicked the careful throttle modulation of experienced adventurers. Every decision was tested not in wind tunnels alone, but on trails from Arizona to Alaska. The company's motto of "Keep the world adventurous forever" wasn't marketing fluff. It became the design brief. What truly defined the Rivian R1T's launch moment was its balance between vision and practicality. Unlike early EV startups that promised the moon and delivered half a prototype, Rivian approached with quiet confidence. They built a real truck, then built a network to support it. Adventure network chargers appeared along remote routes where traditional infrastructure rarely reached, turning charging stops into part of the journey rather than an obstacle. This was a company betting that adventure seekers would see electricity not as limitation, but liberation. Still, challenges loomed. The R1T's price placed it in premium territory, well above conventional mid-sized trucks. Its production ramp was cautious, delayed by global supply shortages and the massive complexity of scaling something so new. Yet early owners, those who took delivery of the first batches, described a kind of awe. The R1T wasn't just another EV, it felt hand-built for people who wanted to explore without guilt. The gear tunnel could hold snowboards, the front could swallow coolers, and the software updates arrived over the air like secret upgrades to capability. When the Rivian R1T hit American roads in 2021, it didn't just compete, it disrupted. It became the first fully electric pickup truck available in the US, a milestone even legacy automakers hadn't crossed yet. The timing was poetic. Gas prices were rising, Environmental concerns were louder than ever, and the idea of electrification had finally moved from novelty to necessity. Rivian's arrival felt almost cinematic, a newcomer challenging institutions that defined the American highway for generations. But design intent only matters if the product delivers. The R1T's 314-mile range, 11,000-pound towing capacity, and 0 to 60 time under 4 seconds weren't just specs, they were proof points. It could haul, it could race, and it could climb, all while emitting nothing from its tailpipe. Its air suspension allowed ride height adjustments for highway cruising or rock crawling. The bed's integrated air compressor, the camp kitchen accessory, the power outlets. Each detail echoed the truck's dual identity. Part adventure tool, part technology showcase. What often gets overlooked in the Rivian R1T story is how human its development was. The company's founder, engineers, and designers weren't chasing luxury or vanity. They were chasing usability, the idea that technology should enhance experiences, not isolate them. The truck's user interface was built with clarity, not clutter. Physical knobs were sacrificed for touchscreen controls, but the logic behind each menu came from field testing. When you're covered in dust or snow, simplicity matters more than flash. Owning a Rivian R1T in those early years was like joining a movement. Owners swapped charging tips, shared trail photos, and reported firmware quirks that Rivian engineers often patched within weeks. It was a live experiment in community-based evolution. And in a way, that made every R1T more than a truck. It was a platform for learning how adventure could exist sustainably. As the model's story unfolded, it revealed something about modern American identity. The R1T wasn't built to replace every pickup. It was built to reframe what a pickup could be. That's why its interior didn't mimic luxury SUVs or blue-collar rigs. It sat somewhere between premium but purposeful, durable vegan leather, sustainable wood trim, sealed electronics, all whispering the same message. Adventure and responsibility can share a cabin. The Rivian R1T's early years taught the industry an uncomfortable truth. Innovation doesn't need permission. While giants were announcing timelines and concepts, Rivian was delivering keys. That alone earned it credibility among skeptics and enthusiasts alike. Still, its path wasn't easy. Scaling production, meeting investor expectations, and competing with newcomers like Tesla's delayed Cybertruck created constant pressure. Yet through all of it, the R1T kept moving. Sometimes literally across deserts to film commercials. Sometimes metaphorically through regulatory mazes and supply chain snags. The beauty of the R1T's origin story lies in its conviction. It wasn't born out of nostalgia or trend chasing. It was born from a belief that people would pay for meaning. A truck that could climb a mountain and power a campsite, all without burning a drop of fuel. The promise of freedom, updated for a new century. That's how the Rivian R1T entered the conversation. Not as the loudest or the cheapest, but as the one that dared to bridge contradictions. It's high-tech yet deeply analog in spirit. It's rugged yet silent. It's American, but not in the old chrome and smoke way. And that combination is what makes it fascinating. Because once a vehicle shows that power and preservation can coexist, it changes expectations forever. And the Rivian R1T did exactly that. Next, we'll see how the world reacted when this quiet powerhouse met the open market, and what its rise revealed about America's shifting relationship with the road. When the Rivian R1T reached customers, the response wasn't just curiosity, it was a cultural moment. Pickup buyers, environmentalists, and tech enthusiasts all found themselves circling the same machine, each seeing something different reflected in its polished panels. For some, the Rivian R1T represented a future of responsible adventure. For others, it symbolized a shift in who gets to define American engineering. That diversity of perception made its market debut uniquely charged. The R1T wasn't merely a product launch, it was a referendum on whether Americans were ready to let electricity replace combustion at the very heart of their automotive identity. The Rivian R1T's early reviews bordered on disbelief. Testers marveled at its acceleration, its composure off-road, and its near-silent power delivery. The quad-motor system, one for each wheel, allowed precision control no mechanical differential could match. It could pivot in mud, climb uneven rock faces, and descend with composure that made seasoned off-roaders blink. But more impressive was how easy it made those feats. Electric torque didn't require revs or patience, it just responded. And that redefined what capability felt like behind the wheel. Still, the R1T had to prove more than performance. Could it be trusted day to day? The charging infrastructure was expanding, but compared to the network serving city commuters, remote coverage remained patchy. Rivian's adventure network began filling those gaps, installing chargers near trailheads and scenic routes instead of just interstate exits. It was a bold strategy that told buyers this truck wasn't made for errands, it was made for exploration. The message resonated deeply with outdoor enthusiasts who'd long struggled with the contradiction of burning fuel to reach unspoiled places. As the Rivian R1T gained visibility, rivals took notice. Established automakers hurried to reveal their own electric pickups, some rushing prototypes to claim relevance. But while others leaned on legacy, Rivian built mystique. It wasn't a brand selling nostalgia. It was selling transformation. The R1T's buyers weren't switching from one badge to another, they were switching eras. That shift drew attention from tech investors, adventure influencers, and even those who'd never considered owning a truck before. The R1T's pricing, however, tested loyalty. With configurations often exceeding $70,000, it lived in the same bracket as luxury SUVs and high-spec pickups. Yet its audience seemed less price-sensitive and more mission-driven. They weren't buying a tool, they were buying participation in a story about possibility. Ownership came with both pride and patience. Early adopters tolerated production delays, software bugs, and limited service coverage because they believed in the bigger picture. Rivian, in turn, maintained unusually transparent communication, sharing updates on fixes and improvements directly through its app and online community. The aftermarket world soon took interest in the Rivian R1T as well. Suspension tuners, overlanding companies, and adventure gear brands saw opportunity in its modular design. The flat underbody and accessible power outlets made it ideal for add-ons. Roof tents, light racks, portable fridges powered straight from the truck's outlets. This adaptability turned it into a platform rather than a static product, reinforcing Rivian's vision of sustainable adventure. Even traditional pickup culture, often skeptical of change, began to take notice when videos surfaced of R1Ts towing boats silently or navigating flooded roads with ease. Still, success came with growing pains. Rivian's manufacturing facility in Normal, Illinois, faced ramp-up hurdles. Supply chain disruptions hit batteries and semiconductors hardest, stretching delivery timelines. Meanwhile, the financial markets, once euphoric about EV startups, started demanding proof of profitability. Through it all, the R1T remained Rivian's anchor, its most visible and emotionally resonant product. Every review, every road trip video, every trail test carried the weight of the brand's reputation. For American truck enthusiasts, the Rivian R1T challenged something deeper than brand loyalty. It challenged identity. The traditional pickup had long symbolized independence powered by fossil fuel. The R1T offered a new kind of freedom, independence from that dependency. It reframed toughness as resilience, not aggression. And it did so without preaching, simply by performing. Watching an R1T climb Slick Rock in Utah or coast along the Pacific Coast Highway in silence created a sensory dissonance, proof that the familiar sound of power might soon be replaced by something quieter, but no less thrilling. Market analysts debated whether the Rivian R1T's success could last. Would its high price and boutique positioning limit its impact? Or would it, like the early iPhone, pave the way for mainstream acceptance by setting expectations higher? The answer began revealing itself as competitors followed Rivian's lead, copying its layout, its adventure-focused marketing, even its customer engagement style. The R1T wasn't just competing, it was dictating the new rules of the electric pickup segment. The American regulatory environment helped and hindered in equal measure. Federal incentives for electric vehicles made the R1T more attainable for some, but its size and weight often placed it near price caps that reduced eligibility. Meanwhile, debates about charging standards, CCS versus the rapidly spreading NACS plug, added another layer of uncertainty. Rivian's decision to eventually adopt the NACS standard signaled flexibility and foresight, aligning the R1T with the broader US charging ecosystem. That move reassured potential buyers that this wasn't a niche experiment, but a long-term commitment. Culturally, the Rivian R1T arrived at an inflection point. Americans were questioning the sustainability of oversized vehicles even as they continued buying them in record numbers. The R1T bridged that contradiction by offering both indulgence and conscience. It didn't scold its drivers for wanting power or presence. It gave them those things wrapped in responsibility. The symbolism was powerful. a pickup that could camp under the stars without choking the air around it. In the press, comparisons were inevitable. Against rivals from established automakers, the R1T consistently held its own. Reviewers praised its fit and finish, its tactile quality, its genuine sense of purpose. They noted the lack of gimmicks, the understated elegance of design choices that served function over flair. Yet the true metric of its success wasn't just sales, it was influence. Every time another manufacturer announced an off-road capable EV, you could trace its inspiration back to the Rivian R1T's silhouette. Among owners, the sense of community deepened. Forums filled with stories of long overland trips powered solely by electricity, of kids growing up associating silence with strength. The R1T became part of family rituals, charging at night, exploring on weekends, updating software before the next trip. It was no longer an anomaly, it was a lifestyle marker. For a generation weary of greenwashing, it represented authenticity. Yet there was tension. As Rivian grew, it faced the corporate pressures every disruptor eventually meets, scaling without diluting. Each quarter brought headlines about layoffs, partnerships, or expansions. But through these shifts, the Rivian R1T remained the steady heart of the company's story. Its reliability in real-world conditions, from icy Colorado winters to humid Florida summers, built confidence. Reviewers who revisited the truck years later found it aging gracefully. Software smarter, performance unchanged, materials holding up. The R1T's success even reached into policy conversations. State agencies evaluating fleet electrification cited it as proof that electric trucks could handle duty cycles previously thought exclusive to diesel. Its presence at parks, trails, and charging stops normalized the idea that sustainability could coexist with utility. What once seemed radical now looked inevitable. And yet, the Rivian R1T's rise wasn't about replacing the old guard overnight. It was about shifting perception one driver at a time. Its quiet competence disarmed cynics, its practicality converted skeptics, and its design charmed those who thought electric meant soulless. By the time other electric pickups finally reached customers, the Rivian R1T had already established the emotional blueprint. It had proven that electric trucks could evoke pride, not just virtue. Its story was no longer just about engineering, it was about trust, because trust once earned spreads faster than torque. And that's how the Rivian R1T didn't just compete in a market, it transformed one. Next, we'll trace how that transformation evolved into legacy, what the R1T changed permanently in how Americans think about capability, and what comes next for those who choose to follow its trail. The Rivian R1T stands today as both symbol and substance, a vehicle that proved change doesn't always arrive with fanfare, but with quiet determination and undeniable results. As the years since its debut unfolded, the R1T's influence deepened in ways few predicted. What began as a bold newcomer evolved into a reference point, the measuring stick by which every electric truck after it would be judged. From its earliest prototypes to its latest software updates, the Rivian R1T has become shorthand for what happens when innovation meets integrity. When examining the Rivian R1T's long-term impact, you start with what owners call the aftershock. Once someone drives it, feels the weightless torque, experiences the silence, sees how its design functions seamlessly, something shifts in their expectations. Suddenly, the roar of internal combustion feels dated, even indulgent. This psychological pivot is perhaps the R1T's most powerful legacy. It made sustainability desirable without sacrificing excitement. The R1T didn't shame people into caring about the planet. It seduced them into it through competence and style. By 2025, the Rivian R1T had matured into a proven concept. Production capacity increased, new trims expanded accessibility, and the company's network of chargers had spread across national parks and highway corridors. The truck's continued refinement through software kept it fresh. Drivers woke up to improved range or smarter navigation without ever visiting a dealer. These incremental evolutions reflected Rivian's software-first mindset, treating vehicles as living products, not static machines. That philosophy, once novel, soon became an industry norm. Meanwhile, the R1T's influence bled beyond the automotive world. Outdoor recreation brands began aligning with electric adventuring, designing gear and experiences tailored to emission-free exploration. Campgrounds installed EV infrastructure, national parks adapted charging policies, and overlanding events started hosting dedicated electric categories. All of this created an ecosystem around the R1T, a sign that a single product can ripple through entire industries when it captures both imagination and purpose. Culturally, the Rivian R1T reshaped what American toughness looks like. Its presence in media, from documentaries to off-road expos, presented a new kind of heroism. Capable, composed, and conscientious. No smoke, no noise, just progress. For decades, the image of strength was tied to output and volume. The R1T replaced that with control and intelligence. It's no small feat that in certain circles, a silent climb up a muddy trail now commands as much respect as a roaring burnout once did. But legacy isn't only about triumph, it's about endurance. The Rivian R1T's long-term tests revealed that its electric architecture aged gracefully. Battery degradation remained minimal thanks to active cooling and software-managed charging patterns. The chassis, designed for abuse, showed resilience far beyond typical EV expectations. That durability mattered because it dismantled the stereotype that electric vehicles were fragile or short-lived. Owners reported hundreds of thousands of miles of adventure without significant loss in capability. Even in resale markets, the R1T surprised analysts. Despite newer entrants flooding the segment, used R1Ts maintained strong value, a reflection of both brand trust and limited supply. Buyers recognized that while competitors might offer more features or lower prices, few matched the R1T's blend of craftsmanship and ethos. It had become, in essence, a collectible of the electric era's first wave. From a policy standpoint, the R1T's existence gave lawmakers tangible proof that electrification could scale into heavy-duty categories. It influenced emission standards, inspired grant programs for electric infrastructure in rural areas, and provided real-world data for environmental impact studies. Every time a state evaluated EV incentives for trucks, Rivian's numbers, the torque, the range, the reliability, appeared in briefing slides. It wasn't theoretical anymore. For enthusiasts, though, what keeps the R1T's story compelling isn't the policy or the specs, it's the emotion. There's something profoundly cinematic about a silent machine carrying explorers through storm, desert, or snowfield, powered by nothing but stored energy and human curiosity. It rekindles a primal sense of discovery while aligning with modern conscience. That paradox, wild yet responsible, defines its charm. In retrospect, the Rivian R1T's rise also exposed the limits of old industry thinking. Competitors learned that electric pickups couldn't simply mimic gas designs with battery packs bolted underneath. The R1T's holistic engineering, from flat floor architecture to integrated software, proved that true innovation requires starting from zero. It forced even the biggest automakers to admit that heritage alone wouldn't win the electric age. Perhaps the most unexpected part of the Rivian R1T's journey is its cultural warmth. Many disruptive technologies feel cold or clinical, but the R1T generated genuine affection. People name their trucks, decorate them, document adventures online, and share route data to help others plan electric trips. It's a community built on optimism, not nostalgia. That sentimentality, rooted in shared experience rather than shared cynicism, may be its greatest contribution to the American automotive narrative. The truck also reframed luxury. Not through chrome or badges, but through purpose. The R1T's luxury lies in silence, capability, and self-sufficiency. A sense that you can go anywhere, stay longer, and leave lighter footprints. It's aspirational, yes, but grounded in practicality. For a generation juggling ambition and responsibility, that balance feels like the ultimate status symbol. Looking ahead, the Rivian R1T's descendants, updated models, derivatives, even future vehicles that borrow its DNA, will owe their existence to the clarity of this original vision. But even as technology evolves, the essence remains unchanged, that adventure and sustainability can coexist without compromise. The R1T didn't end the age of combustion. It began the age of consciousness. Its legacy will not just be the truck itself, but the mindset it inspired. Engineers who worked on it now populate startups and legacy firms, carrying lessons about modularity, efficiency, and authenticity. Consumers who owned one may never return to gasoline, not out of ideology, but because the alternative now feels primitive. That's real transformation, the kind that outlives product cycles and marketing campaigns. The Rivian R1T story closes not with finality, but with forward motion. Its tires have carved a new path into the American imagination, one where progress hums instead of roars, where capability respects its surroundings, and where the joy of driving no longer comes at the planet's expense. And that's the enduring power of the Rivian R1T. It didn't just build a truck, it built belief. The Rivian R1T may have started as an experiment, but for American drivers, it's now part of the landscape, a signpost of how far electric adventure has come and where it's heading next. The story of this truck is, at its heart, a story about possibility. It proved that a vehicle could be rugged without pollution, luxurious without pretense, and high-tech without alienating those who simply love the open road. For U.S. buyers today, the Rivian R1T sits in a unique position. Premium, yes, but deeply practical for those who value long-term ownership and adventure readiness. Pricing in the mid to high $70,000 range puts the Rivian R1T among well-equipped full-size pickups, yet what it offers goes beyond category. Its durability has earned trust, its maintenance costs remain low thanks to fewer moving parts, and its real-world range, still averaging over 300 miles per charge, means it competes confidently with gas trucks on usability. Charging infrastructure, once a worry, now feels manageable across most of the continental US, especially with Rivian's growing adventure network supplementing public fast chargers. For those living in colder states, battery conditioning and software updates have improved winter performance significantly, reducing range anxiety and improving regenerative braking control. Reliability reports from long-term owners show steady confidence. Early teething issues with software have largely been ironed out, while mechanical components, motors, suspension, and body structure have held up impressively under heavy use. Even fleets testing the Rivian R1T for government and park service operations report strong uptime and minimal maintenance disruption. And because Rivian continues to roll out over-the-air improvements, every R1T effectively gets better with age, something no gasoline rival can claim. For enthusiasts, the ownership experience offers unexpected joys. The gear tunnel and integrated outlets turn the truck into a mobile workstation or campsite. The front keeps valuables dry and secure on road trips, and the driving feel, precise yet serene, still surprises even years after launch. On a twisty back road or a steep trail, the sensation of silent torque remains uncanny. There's no lag, no exhaust note, just effortless motion, a different kind of thrill, grounded in control rather than chaos. Availability is improving, though demand still outpaces production in certain trims. Used examples retain value unusually well for an EV, largely because of their reliability and limited depreciation compared to sedans. Insurance premiums have settled closer to standard pickup averages as data accumulates, reflecting growing trust in repairability and safety systems. For anyone considering one today, the ownership reality is far less experimental than it once was. It's mature, supported, and ready for daily life. Looking ahead, the Rivian R1T's blueprint continues to guide the future of American electric vehicles. Its design DNA will shape Rivian's upcoming models, and its success has already influenced how established manufacturers approach off-road EVs. But more importantly, it has shifted public expectation. Trucks are no longer judged solely by horsepower or bed size. They're judged by how intelligently they combine power, efficiency, and conscience. The R1T redefined that equation, and no amount of marketing spin from competitors can undo it. So what's the lasting takeaway for drivers? That progress can be practical, that sustainability can be exciting, and that silence, once considered a lack of character, can actually be the sound of mastery. The Rivian R1T gave Americans permission to rethink what a truck should be. It made electric driving not just possible, but aspirational. And that's a rare feat in any industry, let alone one built on tradition. The journey that began with a quiet hum now echoes across highways, mountain passes, and national parks, a reminder that every revolution starts with a single spark. The Rivian R1T lit that spark, carried it across the country, and left behind a trail not of smoke but of possibility.